So, in yesterday class, it is lecture 6, we have introduced one of the stationary process, what is known as moving average process of different orders. And then we have seen some of its properties like mean, variance, covariance function. And we have seen that this process is stationary always for all finite orders, like order of q, MAQ, for q equal to 1, q equal to 2. And in fact, we have computed the mean, variance, and covariance function for a general H. And we have seen that this process is basically constructed as kind of linear combination of white noise process. So the natural question towards the end of the class, I asked that, can we say that every linear combination, whether it is a finite or infinite, is going to be a stationary process? Is linear combination of the white noise process is going to be a stationary process? So we'll come to that answer of that question a bit later. But today we are going to introduce another type of stationary. Now, stationary means this process requires some condition for this to be stationary. Whereas in the earlier case, for any finite order that is going to be stationary, the condition required only for the invertibility. So let's look at this process. So today's class, we are going to introduce what is known as autoregressive model. So what is autoregressive? Autoregressive, that you are regressing on the auto. It's past observation. So that's what autoregressive. So xt is related to the lagged values of xt. That means xt minus 1, xt minus 1. Such processes are called autoregressive. The simplest one that you can think of, autoregressive of order 1, where it is defined like this: xt equal to phi xt minus zt. Now, we are going to discuss a little more detail on this. So towards that, we are going to define with a drift or with a kind of an extra parameter mu. So we define an AR1 the non-zero mean like this. This has mean 0. This is a non-zero. In fact, we are going to derive the mean and variance. So we may assume normality. Now, what is the distribution of this? As we have already discussed in detail about the white noise process, zero mean, constant variance, uncorrelated. You can also, in addition to that, you can also assume that they are normally distributed. These are normally distributed. So if you make an assumption that they are normally distributed, instead of uncorrelatedness, you can consider them as independent. So they will be IID normal square, such a case. And in a practical sense, how are we going to verify is like your regression analysis, because we don't observe this, but we observe XTs, and then we fix a model, estimate these parameters, get the residual, and then subject the residual to the normality test, like in the usual regression analysis. So here, one of the things that we assume, which I'm going to discuss a little later, already I mentioned, we already discussed, and some of you already raised an issue like the logic of assuming ZT to be independent of xt minus h for every h greater than 0. That means the past observations or the past observation or the current observation will be uncorrelated with the future errors. So when you're talking at time t, zt plus 1, zt plus 2, etc., these are all independent of xt minus 1. Now, basically, if you look at this model, this has two parts. One is the past value and one is the error component. So it's past value through. Here I have written the past value depends only on xt minus 1, but you can extend this, and as you extend this, you start getting the higher order regressive model. So if it depends on xt minus 1 alone, what essentially we are doing, I mean, in your stochastic process, you might have already introduced what is called a Markov process or a Markov chain rather in the discrete case. So what it means that even if you are given all the past, it just depends on the current is just depending on the immediate past, not of any past beyond that. So for that, what I mean is xt is going to depend on only on xt minus 1, but not xt minus 2, xt minus 3. So given the conditional distribution of, given the conditional like xt given xt minus 1, etc., is same as xt given xt minus. So this is called first order Markov or in general Markov process. So we will denote, now what is the conditional mean for such process? We'll denote it by mu t. In general, I'm putting t here to make, this is conditional. Whereas when we said stationarity, we are talking about the marginal, okay, expectation of xt. This is the conditional mean. So the conditional mean is mu plus phi xt minus 1. And we assume that you have the normality. If you have the normality, this conditional distribution is normal with this mean variance sigma square. This is nothing new. I mean, this is what exactly you have learned regression class, where you might have written this as alpha plus beta xi minus, or alpha plus beta xi, yi given xi is distributed as normal alpha plus beta xi square. That's what distribution. So now the question is, if you assume stationarity, assuming stationarity, I put it in red, it's very important, then you can actually prove that expectation of xt is mu upon 1 minus phi and variance of xt. This is pretty simple. Sorry, because very easy. How you can do this? So your process is x1 t and sigma square. And see, if you start taking expectation of 1, now assuming stationarity. So you cannot use this argument for proving stationarity. This I'm going to assume stationarity. Expectation of xt, expect 1. So I'm denoting it by expectation of xt. You can see that expect 1. And similarly, variance of xt square 1, and covariance between xt minus 1 is 0. Twice covariance. So what are you going to get as square because so once you have this, we will be able to write assuming stationary. This is very important because you can't use this argument for proving stationarity, because this you get only with because some people make a common mistake. You compute the variance like this and then say that the variance is free from time. You compute the mean like this and then claim that the mean is free from time. That argument is not correct, because to prove the stationarity, of course, argument is correct as long as you assume stationarity. To proving stationarity, that argument is not very correct. You can compute expectation without making that assumption, because here we have assumed that variance of xt is equal to variance of x. So this is only available assuming state. Okay, let's go back and then so you get expectation of xt equal to mu upon 1 minus phi variance of x. So now if I take this AR1 process, like and just for sake of further illustration, I assume mu equal to 0. So the mean is 0, mu upon 1 minus phi. So if I take mu equal to 0, the expectation of that. Now there is a natural condition. Now what has happened that, if you remember, I have this variance of this. Now this clearly implies phi cannot be equal to plus 1 plus or minus 1. Reason being that if the phi equal to plus or minus 1, this will become infinity. So you cannot have this the variance to be plus, I mean the phi to be plus or minus 1. So it means that now you cannot have more than 1 also, because then you get negative variance. That is also, so this clearly indicates that, clearly implies that absolute of phi. That means phi. This is the range which we prefer phi to vary. Question is that I'm not claiming any stationarity condition or stationarity assumption for the time being. I'm just looking at the, because I already assumed that it is stationary. And if that is the case, even if that I assume stationary, then I cannot have the phi to be plus 1 or minus 1, because it's going to be in such a case, and we cannot have variance to. Now, then the possible values are between minus 1 and plus 1. Because if this exceeds minus 1 and plus 1, or minus 1 on the left hand side, plus 1 on the right hand side, then this will become negative. So that's also not allowed, because you cannot have variance to be negative. So this indicates that naturally there will be a condition. So now I am going ulta, in the sense that I'm actually assuming stationarity, and then say that what is the range in which the phi can vary. So this will not contradict our random walk process, because you remember that we have the random walk process by considering phi equal to 1. So for example, we had this random walk process xt 1 plus zt. This is our random walk process. So this is an AR1 with phi equal to 1. So immediately it tell you that there are some problem. You have infinite variance. So when you have infinite variance, you can get very large values and small values, and the stationarity is lost. Okay, let's come back to that. So now question is that, okay, so if I don't assume the stationarity, how can you get the expectation and variance? So that can be obtained in the following manner. So what we can do is the following, because if you assume, so if I have xt is equal to pxt minus 1 plus zt, so I'll now phi xt minus 1 is phi xt minus 2 plus zt minus 1 plus zt, which is phi square xt minus 2 plus phi zt minus. I do this exercise once again. You have phi square, and then you have xt minus 2 can be written as phi xt minus 3 plus zt minus 2 plus phi zt minus plus zt. So what will be this? E cubed 3 phi zt minus 2 plus phi. So if you continue to do this, actually you may think that this you can go up to 0 only. This is xt minus. So what is happening here, if you do this exercise, like if you go up to t, what you get? E to the power of t x0, okay? And this is phi to the power of t minus 1 z 1 plus etc. Because t minus, this is t minus 2, so basically this is t minus 1 z1 and plus etc. So what you can, this is p to the power of t minus 1, then you'll have phi to the power of 1 less than that, to the power, and go up to the power of t minus 1. So, so you will have this going to be phi to the power of t and zt z1. So basically, I mean, like you keep on reducing this. So what actually happens that you look at this. Now, if I allow this to write, you know, you go one step ahead, because if you have xt as zt phi xt minus 1 plus zt. So x0 is phi of x minus 1 plus z0. See, I now don't confuse between the data and the process. You actually start with the data, then you cannot go beyond a 0 or you cannot go beyond 1. But in a process, as I told you in the beginning, that you can have time actually travel towards minus infinity also. So in such a case, this whole thing is actually, it keep on reducing this. So basically what you will have is summation j equal to 0 to infinity 5 to the power of j zt. You can check this because j equal to 0, you get zt, this term. J equal to 1, you get 5 zt minus 1, which etc. Continue like this. When j equal to t minus 1, 5 t, t minus 1, 5 to the power of t minus 1, z1. And then the next one is j equal to t. So that will be 5 to the power of t z naught. Okay, and then keep on doing this. So finally this is what you are going to get. So this xt is going to be something like this. But then here is a question, like what is the guarantee? This is just writing, this is just a notation. Okay, there is nothing like summation 0 to infinity. I mean, because what is infinity? So this is just a notation to see that okay, this sum go up to infinity. So so basically what does this mean? So this means that you need a convergence here because there is an idea of convergence comes. So now that what happened that you're not talking about mathematical series. So this is like, if you have a something like j equal to 0, k 5 to the power j zt j limit k tends. This is what you're talking about. But what happens that this limit is something like a random. I mean, what you have learned in your probability theory. This is like convert. You have to talk in terms of when you talk in terms of sequence, random sequences converging. Then you have to attach a probability statement or an almost sure statement or a distribution statement attached to that. So you cannot just like xn converges to x. Xn has to converge either in terms of probability, in probability, which is for mathematics people in measure. Xn converges to x in measure or xn converges to, now the probability is a measure, so we talk in terms of probability measure, and xn converges to x almost surely, and for mathematics class you say almost everywhere. That means the point at which the omega or the point at which the conversion doesn't happen as a measure of 0. That's what xn almost surely. So here we can, it is possible to claim, I'm not getting into those technical details, but it is possible to show that this xt and this summation k equal to j equal to 0 to k 5 to the power of k x, sorry, this x 5 to the, so what we have to show that the expectation of the limit, uh, so the limit actually limit k tends to infinity, this is 0. So which essentially mean that as k tends to infinity, this infinite sum is actually converging to xt. See, that's what we have written equality by. So I told you this is a notation. Who told you that is true? So that is actually being understood in this context. Now, this is for a probabilist, but we are not getting into those details for the time being. But this is what it means. So essentially, we can say that now the question is that this condition, if you want, if this to happen, you don't have it by default. So you have to put some condition on this, and that condition actually leads to absolute of phi. This convergence happens only, so it converges absolute of phi less than, converges only when So this become a sort of condition for stationarity. Condition for stationarity. The case of, why this stationarity? In the case of an AR. This is because you are writing xt as summation j equal to 0 to infinity 5 to the power of j zt minus j. Now, why this condition for stationarity? Because this series now convergence series. So 1 to infinity, I mean 0 to infinity, I can very well write. And now zt is a white noise. So this is stationary. In fact, it is, I mean, we have assumed it is weakly stationary. Therefore, its expectation and its variance of z. This is free from t. What is the expectation? 0. And what is the variance? Sigma square. So we can now see that this expectation of this particular process xt is equal to I can take expectation inside because of the convergence. So 5 to the power of j and expectation of zt j, and that is 0. So similarly, variance of xt is summation j equal to 0, 5 to the power of 2j and the variance of zt. Now, I am not writing covariances because zt's are uncorrelated. So I don't have covariances. So what you have now, you have this particular sequence. So this is like, and variance of zt is actually sigma square. So sigma square 5 to the. So now what happens that this convergent, this is a geometric series. So this goes to 1 upon 1 minus 5 square, okay? Sigma square. So this is equal to, so this become the variance. Now this is stationary variance because of the fact that there is no t here. See, that's very important. So this is how, if I did not tell you that it is stationary, this is how you should find the variance and the mean. Because the other way, when you start finding, you're actually committing a mistake, because you already assume stationarity and then compute the mean and variance and then say that it is weakly stationary. That is not correct. So here it is very correct in the sense you assume that this is. So now similarly we can also compute the covariance function of AR1. So this is how, so for the above representation, this is what I did. So I have now explained this particular. So we can show that. So I have shown you this. Now, what about the autocovariance function? So assuming stationarity, we can see that the autocovariance function gamma x is covariance between xt plus h and xt. Now xt plus h, I'm going to write the expression for that. Xt plus h, because of it you are talking about AR1, it is phi of xt plus h minus 1 plus zt h comma xt. And then this covariance, you have the linearity property. So this phi times the covariance between xt plus h minus 1 plus the covariance between zt plus h and xt. Now covariance between zt plus h and xt is equal to 0. So this come down to this quantity, 0. Now what is this now? Because if gamma x, I'm not going to pronounce x, gamma h. If gamma h is equal to phi times gamma h minus 1, so gamma h minus 1 is phi times gamma h minus 2, which means that in general this goes up to 0, or in other words gamma h is equal to phi to the power of h gamma 0, right? Because this will be phi square into gamma h minus 2, phi cubed into gamma h minus 3, you go up to h phi to the power of h gamma 0. And what is gamma 0? Sigma square upon 1 minus 5 square. That's what. So you will get this gamma 0 is sigma square upon 1 minus 5 square, assuming that these values it won't take. So it means that for h equal to 0, you can actually put h equal to 0 here. So what happened? It is covariance between xt and xt, which is nothing but the variance of that. So because you will get phi square gamma x 0. So gamma x 0 is 1 sigma square upon 1 square. So the autocorrelation of a process, AR1 process, is you look at this, you divide by gamma x0 here, because that's how the definition of rho xh. So gamma xh divided by rho x0, gamma x0, that will give you rho xh. What is going to be rho xh? Phi to the power of absolute of h. Now suddenly where from this absolute came? Because we have written h, we haven't really specified what is h. You know, this h could be +1, -1, +2, -2, +3, -3, anything like that. So, but it's not going to make any change here, because we know that rho x h is equal to rho x minus h. So if you want that to be same, if you write like this, it will not be same. So it has to be absolute. So which means that rho x h is equal to phi to the power of absolute of. This is this you are taking denominator of this. So that is how you get. So this is autocorrelation. So the autocorrelation function of an AR1 process is phi to the power of x. So now if you look at the AR2, you can see that the AR2 model is like this. So we got the condition of, so actually we have got the condition of stationarity in terms of the parameter there. We got in terms of the, what was the parameter for the model? Phi. And we got the parameter, we got the condition as absolute of phi less than 1. Now look at the AR2 model. So xt is equal to phi1 xt minus 1, phi2 xt. This is not Markov, because xt is going to depend on not just given all the past. It's not just depending on its xt minus 1, but rather it's going to depend on xt as well as xt minus 1. So this, I am assuming stationarity. Right now, I don't know what is the condition required, but I'm just assuming that stationarity. In terms of the parameter, we will discuss that little. So if you take expectation, you can see that the expectation of this has to be 0. And the covariance function, you can actually obtain the covariance function as, it's very easy. You multiply xt throughout. And then you multiply xt minus 1, xt minus 2, each of them, this equation. So this reduces to gamma z. xt, if you multiply xt and then take expectation. So that gamma 0 equal to phi1 gamma 1 plus phi2 gamma 2 plus sigma square. By xt, this covariance between zt and xt is going to be sigma square. Now if you multiply by xt minus 1, then this is gamma 1 is gamma 0 plus phi2 gamma. Now xt minus 1 and zt are uncontrolled. So there is no contribution. Similarly, you multiply by xt minus 2 on both sides and take expectation, right? Now, if you divide the first equation by gamma 0 and simplify, so if you divide by gamma 0 and start simplifying it, you can see this, so there will be gamma 1 by gamma 0, which is rho 1. There will be gamma 2 by gamma 0, which is rho 2. And there will be a sigma square upon gamma 0. So you will have a sigma square upon gamma 0 side. Take it all this on the other side. So this will simplifies to gamma 0 is quantity. Which means that in order to compute the variance, marginal variance, you require this. That's a difference here. Earlier, it was directly coming as sigma square upon 1 minus phi square. Now that is not the case. The variance is actually embedded, because now this is going to depend on two observations. So both of the coefficients are going to, and they appear not fully but partially. How much is the partially? That depends on the autocorrelation. So you have 1 minus sigma square divided by 1 minus phi1 rho 1. Rho 1 is, that's pretty simple. I've told you, you divide by gamma. So you get that. Divided by gamma 0 means this will become rho 1. Divided by gamma 0, this will become rho 2. So that's how you get this. Proceed further. Now dividing by the equation, yeah. So here I have given the details. Get rho 1 as, so if you divide by gamma 0 this equation, this is rho 1. This will be phi 1. And this is again rho 1. So you see, so rho 1 into 1 minus phi 2 equal to phi 1, or rho 1 equal to phi 1 upon 1 minus. Similarly, you divide this by gamma 0 and then you get the equation, third equation by gamma. So now we got rho 1 as well as rho 2. Go back here, substitute them here. Okay, go back here and substitute. So when you substitute, you get the variance as this. So this is the variance of AR2 process. Okay, The variance of an AR2 process is given by this. So this will involve both the parameters, P1 as well as P2. Now you may, so actually I have, I mean like sort of, this is with the stationarity assumption. You may also derive it in a slightly different way. Consider the stationary AR2 model. So we can have this defined like this. Let's start taking the variance directly. So if you start taking the variance directly, variance of xt equal to phi1 square into variance of phi2 square variance of xt 2 plus 2 phi1 phi2 covariance between xt minus 1 xt 2, and you have this covariance 0, this covariance 0, right? And this variance, which is sigma square. So this is the formula. And if you want to get the variance, so what is this? This is same as gamma 0 equal to sigma square gamma 0 plus phi2 square gamma 0, because you have assumed stationarity. So consider it stationary. So if it is stationary, variance of x is same as variance of xt minus 1, and it is equal to variance of x2. So you have gamma 0 here, and phi1 phi2, this is gamma 1 and sigma square. But we know gamma rho 1 is equal to gamma 1 by gamma 0, which we have already defined, derived here. So because of this, gamma 1 is equal to phi 1 gamma 0 upon 1 minus phi 2. Gamma 1 is equal to, you take this on this side, so phi 1 into gamma 0. Substitute this fellow here. And gamma 0 already so if you substitute this and take all gamma 0 on one side, so we will get an expression for gamma. So this is sigma square gamma 0 plus sigma 2 square gamma 0 plus 2 phi 1 phi 2, and gamma 1 is equal to phi 1 gamma 0 minus phi 2 plus sigma. Simplify this, and that is exactly same as what you have seen in the previous. So you can also obtain this, but remember that we have assumed stationarity for this, because you can't write this expression unless you assume stationarity. In fact, this expression is okay, you don't require, because this is xt and this is xt minus 1. But in the next step, I'm assuming that this is equal to this, which essentially means that these are stationary. So I'm assuming that. So this derivation is done after assuming that you have the stationarity. Now, if you, on the similar line, if you now try to, so what was the autocorrelation for AR1? It is e to the power of absolute of h. What is autocorrelation for AR2? We can actually get them because you get this equation. You remember, this is instead of xt, you multiply by xt plus h. So this will be gamma h phi1 gamma h minus 1 plus phi2 gamma h minus 2. And if h is greater than 0, that this term correlation is 0, which means that you get something kind of an. So gamma h is equal to 1 gamma h minus plus phi2 gamma. You divide by gamma 0 here. So what do you get? Rho h is equal to phi1 rho h minus 1 plus phi2. So this is a system of equation that you can get for it. So if you can solve this, this is a kind of difference equation. If you solve for rho h, then we can see that that is the autocorrelation expression for the autocorrelation in the case of NAR2. Actually, so the initial, what is the initial? So this is actually a difference equation, and the initial condition is rho 0 equal to 1, rho 1 equal to rho 0, phi 1 1 minus phi 2 is obtained from this equation by denoting rho. So there's the solution of this difference equation is the SCF of AR2. Okay, so this difference equation is very important. We actually get into estimation also, we are going to like. Now, what is the behavior of this process? Now, we have seen that the autocorrelation function cuts off in the case of MA1 model. That means if MA2, there will be only two. In the case of model, not for the data, there will be only two, significant autocorrelations that you can see. Now, the same thing change the role in the case of AR1. So whatever that you see for the autocorrelation function SAF in the case of MA, that you are going to see the case of PACF for AR. Okay, so now that's why you are seeing this kind of picture here in the case of AR, MA1, MA2. Now we are going to see this here in the case of PACF. So you can see that the PACF of AR1, there will be 1, PACF of AR2, there will be 2. See, one coming down, one going up depending on what I have chosen. So because I have chosen one positive and one negative, chosen both one positive, one negative, one positive, AR3. So this is how the AR look like. Sorry. So that's for the model, and this is for the data. So how does the data looks like? So the picture look like AR1, AR2, AR3 looks like this. And right now I don't know whether they are stationary. Okay, but this behavior is going to happen for AC. So I have this process, and it's autocorrelation function. Now you see, for model, we have seen that exactly it cut off because it is theoretical expression. Now for the data, what will happen, that this will be insignificant after this, after cutting off. So you can see exactly that's what happened. So for the AR1 case, only one of them, I am not considering this higher one because that is for corresponding to lag 0. Lag 0 correlation is always 1, which is always significant. We are talking about lag 1, lag 2, lag 3. So you can see that the lag 1 correlation is significant, whereas others are not significant. Lag 1 and 2 are significant, others are not. Lag 1, 2, 3 are significant, but others are not. Others are not. Lag 1, 3. Others. So this is the AR process. And now I want to show you one more thing. We have written while discussing, we have written when phi is equal to 1, the AR is becoming a random walk. You can see it from here. If I take phi is equal to 0.9 or minus 0.9, you can see that this picture is very closely resembles random walk picture. Remember the random. So it is stationary now because absolute of phi less than 1. But what happened? It is very close to the boundary because 1 is the value for which it is non-stationary. So by the time it is 0.9, the process is highly it is stationary, but it is real marching towards the non-stationary behavior. So that's what happened for. And this is my last slide. So what here, suppose we have a 2 time series process AR1, and this is the model. ACF depends exponentially. Let's see how the PACF behaves. So the PACF is basically, in the case of AR1, only first order PACF is significant. Rest of them are all 0. If AR2, second order PACF is Phi1 and Phi2. So in that case, Phi2, I mean, like significant in the sense that the highest non-zero coefficient will be the PACF. So alpha 2 be close to. The second one will be 0 in the case of AR1. The third one will be 0 in the case of AR2, or the Q plus 1th onwards will be, P plus 1th onwards of ARP. So this is how you can actually identify whether a given series is AR of what order. So if it cuts off after lag P, what cuts off? PACF. If PACF cuts off after lag P, we can see that this process resembles an ARP model. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you.